Leo, Knighton Tallarico. We right now, planetarily speaking, are in the last quarter of the lunar cycle. And that means that not too long from now, in fact, on the 13th, there's a new moon in Pisces. And that is right, March 13th, new moon in Pisces. Right now, we're in kind of like, whenever you get into the last quarter moon, it's like time to lay back a little bit, do some processing. Because remember, the moon is getting darker and darker every day until that new moon. At the new moon, it begins to shift, going forward and bringing light. So for now, as the light dims, allow your light, which means your light to be very active, up, and engaged, to simmer down, go inside, reflect. And I can add to this theme the fact that it's Pisces time of year, Sun in Pisces time of year. And Pisces is like that. Pisces is about the inner dimensions. It's about going with the flow. It's about letting go and surrendering. It's about trust. Most of us, especially in the United States, are up most of the time. In our heads most of the time. And part of that is because we've been programmed that being active and successful, there's nothing more important than that. And partly it's because people really don't want to go into their inner world. Sometimes there's a lot down there, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions. But it's such a rich place when you allow yourself to go inside. And I hope that a lot of you are meditation people. Because in a lot of ways, the only way you can get to that inner promised land is through meditation. Of course, there's different kinds. So if you just go and search even the web and see what kind of meditations they have and pick out what you like. So yeah, this is last quarter moon, so that's very important. That you go more into your yin side than your yang side of who you are. Well, this last week was a strange one. I thought after Mercury went direct, I thought things would like get less strange, but God, let me give you two instances. Clients I have. Name, of course, you won't know, so I'm just going to tell you the general event. One is a client I've had for a number of years, very stable, very sane, keeps a regular job, good social network. And she called me because she was really in a panic and wanted to talk real soon. And what happened was she, her boyfriend was doing massage work on her. And all of a sudden she saw someone else that wasn't her boyfriend in that body. And then she also felt hands coming on the back of her neck. So she was really scared. Then they went away, or it went away, whatever. Another client, the very next day, another very sane human being, a chiropractor, a professional, very logical, very down to earth. He said he was sitting in his house in the one of the leisure rooms, front room maybe, and leaned back, put his arms on the back of the chair or the couch that he was on. And the next thing he felt was his wrists were being held down. And he could hear a voice in his mind's eye that said, "You got to stay there. We're going to keep you there till we're done." And then he felt the same thing, the energies on the back of his neck. I'm not exaggerating this. This is exactly what happened to a couple of people that are clients of mine and friends too. Most of my clients are, I love them. And so they're like friends too. But to have those two events happen within the 2-day span. I mean, it's not too much jumping to conclusions to say that that means that the veils between worlds is thinner than usual. Like one time a year that it's always thinner, the veils, and that's around Halloween because it's Samhain. So during Samhain, and I've tested it personally, there's a better chance that you can be a medium yourself and contact people from the other side. When you think about it, this ability around that time to go inside and see things, see souls, can you see how Halloween grew out of that? I mean, it seems pretty easy to see, right? People, veils are thinner, they're able to go inside, they see things that they're scared of because they're not used to seeing them. And then we start dressing up as scary people every October 31st. So right now it feels like those veils are thin again. So what is this? What is this period of time? Well, we are switching ages. We are changing ages. We're in the transformational stage of moving from an old age to a new age, from a Pisces age to an age of Aquarius. The age of Pisces has been over 2,000 years running. Began around the time of Christ's birth. And now we are in, just barely, but we are in the age of Aquarius. I know a lot of you were expecting when we get into the age of Aquarius, it would be like the song back in the 60s and 70s. And everybody would be jumping around and happy and, kumbaya. But that's not it. I mean, what it means is that the energies and the reality are shifting in the paradigm, most especially. But it doesn't happen. Things don't happen that way where all of a sudden everything is different and you wake up and it's a perfect world. Never. On this plane of existence, anyway. So, yeah, so we're in this new age, and there's still a lot of darkness around us, in us, because there's a lot of the old world. A lot of the old world is filled with fear. So a lot of our work has been and continues to be letting go of the fear. The fear is and as we do that, as we let go of things that block our heart, block our mind, block our soul, we then become more receptive to energies that want to come in that are from the new age, from the Aquarian age. So it's important to work with it. And yeah, it's sometimes people get freaked out and sometimes people have panic attacks. I understand. That's horrible, horrible feeling. And that's not what most of you will be doing. But the point is that the road to getting into this new age consciousness sometimes have its difficulties. For a lot of us, it's like Kundalini rising has got a lot to do with the transformations that we've gone through in life. And as that energy comes up our spine, when it hits a block, it stops. It stops long enough for us to work out whatever that block was. And, for people to have blocks to being totally authentic with themselves, with the universe, that's not an easy thing to do because, we live in a world that teaches us there's so much to fear all the time. So we're always on our toes to meet those fears. And even worse, the adrenaline rush. Oh, God. The adrenaline rush. And people get addicted to the adrenaline rush. And then when you get to a certain point, you say, a lot of people get worn out from the adrenaline that comes from their issues being triggered and then getting into fight or flight. So now we're working, all of us, to move beyond fight or flight. Fight or flight, we don't want to get rid of having fight or flight. If I walk outside and there's someone with a gun pointing at my head and I don't have fight or flight, check my pulse. There's got to be something wrong with me. Or else I've really evolved into one calm dude. But overall, it's useful, but not for everything because we have egos. We get fight or flight for all sorts of things that there's no business getting fight or flight on. And the more you trust, when I say trust, A lot of people saying, trust what? Trust whom? Trust whatever you want to call it. Trust God. Trust Goddess. Trust the universe. Trust all that is. Trust the connections as opposed to the fears. Trust the love. Trust the love and truth that permeate the universe, because they do. We've trained ourselves to be different than that. But the more and more we get back to our pure state, the more and more we know that that's the truth. A lot of people believe, and I certainly think it's quite possible, that the earth is a reform school. People that lost their connection to the all are here. And think about it, it's possible, because then the healings that we go through are a way of getting back to the connections, going back to the trust that all is connected, that all of us are one on a deeper level. And the Age of Aquarius is about that too. It's about, here's what's different here's one of the things different between the Pisces age and the Aquarian age. Pisces age believes in the Savior, believes in the one. Aquarius believes in the many. And that's in more than one way. It believes in the many because there's many gods and goddesses. It's the many because we want to work in community or in groups or collaboration and not just be by ourselves. So the easy way of being in unity, the easy way of being in unity is just everybody be the same. It's what they do in cults and other groups. They say, okay, here's what you all believe. Here's what you all need physically in life. Same as me. And so that kind of unity, that's the old kind of unity. The opposite of that unity, the opposite of that unity is I'm an individualist. I can do it all by myself. Dog eat dog. That's the opposite side. I'm an island unto myself. Aquarian age, we're moving into something new. We're moving into us being individuals and proud of and true to our differences. And at the same time, being in unity. Look at an orchestra, for instance. Each instrument there is its own instrument. It's not like any other instrument. But when all those instruments play together, it could be such beautiful harmony. And that's what we're doing as humans now too. We're moving into our individuality, but then we're searching for the connections. The way that I work astrology is I kind of do it from the inside. What I see is we all have a family inside of us, and every planet in every sign is a member of that family. And what we tend to do is to judge certain members of our family. So let's say you're a woman and you've been taught you have to be nice all the time. Let's say you're a guy and you've been taught that you have to be tough all the time. So then the part of the man that has any vulnerability in him is judged. The part of the woman that has power is judged. It starts with judgment from the outside, but then it becomes judgment on the inside. So one of our inner children has not been honored, has been judged. So a lot of what healing work is to allow ourselves to let in all the different parts to ourselves into one family of you. So this week, I told you about those very unusual things that happened. I think I mentioned on another broadcast about how 1947 Roswell, the eclipses that were happening around that time, like June of 1947, just before the July 6th landing by the aliens. There were two eclipses right before that. One was a Taurus lunar eclipse, and one was a Sagittarius solar eclipse. By the way, solar eclipses are always new moons. Lunar eclipses are always full moons. Now this November, December, those same eclipses are going to be there. It's just the lunar is going to be the one that's got the Sag, and the solar is going to be the one that has the Taurus, but around the same degrees. 28 degrees of Taurus, 13 degrees of Sagittarius. And those fit right into the United States chart, just like back in 1947. The Taurus one creates a square 90 degree difference between the United States moon in Aquarius and that eclipse. And the other eclipse is in Sagittarius at 12 degrees. I've tested it pretty well, and 12 degrees is the United States ascendant, its rising sign. On 911, Pluto was right on the United States ascendant at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. And to make it even more difficult, Saturn was at 12 degrees of Gemini. So Pluto and Saturn made a opposition to one another. And that opposition fell right on the United States ascendant and descendant. And so now, as we get into the end of 2021, we're going to have the same thing. We're going to have those same parts of the United States charts that are being touched off. It is so important to honor Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto when you're thinking about your chart, when you're going to an astrologer. That's when Uranus was discovered in 1781. Those were the first messages from the universe that we're going into a new age. That was followed in 1846 by Neptune and in 1930 by Pluto. But the first one, most important, 1781 Uranus. Think 1781, what was going on? The beginnings of the revolution in the United States and in France. And because there's a law of the universe which is as above, so below, what Uranus is that. Uranus is breaking away from the kings and the queens, breaking away from the kings and the queens and any authority figures that don't allow human beings to be free and to run the world ourselves. Keep in mind now, when I say we're free, it doesn't mean we're free to storm the Capitol and start thinking about killing people that are in the Capitol. That's not the same thing. Freedom with a sense of responsibility. That's the kind of freedom that'll work. And that's the kind of freedom that will bring us together as a human family to acknowledge and own that this world is our world. And I don't mean that from a possessive place. I mean it simply by, we are the ones who are in charge of ourselves and our lives. And together we build community. Together we build a world that'll work. But again, you got to be responsible with your freedom. Otherwise, it never works. So this is going to be an important year coming up. Oh, by the way, let me mention to you, a special guest today. We're going to have Ellen Solart, who's a fellow resident here in Arizona. And she's going to tell us what her experiences have been like from the other side, from UFOs, alien encounters. Very, very interesting. Stick around. So, remember, I just told you about the Roswell connections are very similar to the connections that are coming up at the end of this year. And that's what I believe one of the elements of this year is going to be a much grander exposure of those from other planets, other dimensions, whatever way you see it. I think it's going to happen on a mass scale. And I think one of the reasons it's going to happen now is because I think that, and this came from, I think I've told you all about Dr. John Mack, who I interviewed on my old radio show in Santa Fe. And he's a psychiatrist. Just bear with me if you heard me do this before. He was a psychiatrist at Harvard, and he started reading about these different abductions. And so he was very curious. He wanted to go out and interview people that said they had been abducted. And when he went out there, his figuring was He's a psychiatrist. They have got to be crazy, psychotic. That's what I'm going to encounter. No, not what he encountered. He found that the people from all over the world, had very similar meanings. And it was indicated by the people that abducted them. I'm not saying abduction's right ever, but it happened, that our Earth was in severe danger. Our human family was in severe danger of destroying itself. Climate change and nuclear weapons were the ones that this entity was telling people during their abductions. So I think that's where we are right now. There's a military-industrial complex that runs the United States and runs a lot of the world. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is like real. President Eisenhower, before he left office, famously said, this military-industrial complex is going to take away our freedoms if we don't get a handle on it and keep moving toward we the people. We need to keep moving toward we the people. So that's what we have, military-industrial complex, and you can call it military-economic complex. You can go military corporation complex, but it's the same. It's the same thing, and it not only runs our country; it kind of runs the world. So what's going to happen? And it's not doomsday. It's not the end of the world. The world will continue. Trust me. Of course, if I'm wrong, no one will know anyway. But there's this is what's happening. We are not. It's not doom and gloom, but then it's also not. Everything's fine. Leave it alone. Everything's been going okay. Don't try to fix something that's not broken. Well, it is. I don't know if it's broken, but it's unfair. It's unjust. You got all sorts of people that don't get to enjoy our earthly community and our earth itself because they're in poverty or they have a terrible illness. They're in our mental institutions. They're sitting in jail because that's where people that don't fit in go. They go to mental institutions or jail. We make it like these are the horrible people of the world, but somehow I don't see them as the horrible people in the world. Somehow I feel them as people that, because we're judgmental and we don't allow all the different types of what we are as humans in, these people become misfits and end up in jails and in mental institutions. Don't get me wrong, there's got to be some people that maybe that helps them. But I'm saying on a deeper level, it's back to that not judging parts of ourselves as a human family. So what's going to be happening then if the military-industrial complex can't last? Military-industrial, that means that the monetary system and the military adventures have to be taken and transformed to a new level. And that to get there, we're going to have to bear with some of our securities or feelings of securities, not feeling so secure, because that's part of transformation, is letting go of the old and letting in the new. I have a chart for the United States stock market. It's in 1781. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think it's 1781. But the point is when Pluto and Saturn in January of 2020 made a conjunction, that, and I've said it before, kind of brought on everything that happened in 2020, which was a really difficult year, partly because of the pandemic. And then you remember, not too long after we found out about the pandemic, people started rushing to the store to get toilet paper and whatever. And then before long, the economy went down. Stock market, almost crashed, went pretty far down. People lost their jobs, and that hasn't come back to a lot of them yet still. So the stock market now, and it's just beginning right now, like a couple of days ago, or of Pluto, guardian of the underworld, making a square to the Saturn and Aries of the stock market chart. So whenever Saturn is aspected in our charts, individual or countries or whatever, it means that our sense of structure, our sense of everything being together, everything working, and most of all, our sense of security. With Pluto there, it means you need to transform this. Whatever ways you've relied on for your security are not right anymore for you. All the things we've been talking about, inequities in our world, this needs to change. The economy needs to change fundamentally so that it's for the people of the world, not just those that can kick butt and beat people at the competitive games. How can that be right? How can that be right? If you're really good at something, why would you have to go to war in order to get a job? So that has to change. We have to transform our paradigm that we live under. And so our old ways of saying what's secure needs to change into new ways of saying what's secure. That means the corporate government combination of this is where your security is based makes people scared to get out of those places. We are going to need to, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We're transforming that military industrial complex. And so the economic system has to change. And the way that we are in the world has to change. The United States we have such wonderful principles that part of our Constitution and Bill of Rights, and we need to come back to them. There were two waves of reality when our country was founded. One was Alexander Hamilton's side, which was about the money, the banking, and then you had Thomas Jefferson's side of things, which was about all people are created equal, certain inalienable rights. You had the idealistic and the monetary, which is fine. That we need both. However, the greed on the money side, I think you can all agree with that, has taken it way out of balance, and now people will put the money situation on a higher priority than the values that we have as a nation. And those values that we have as a nation being taken away or we're losing, that's what's really bringing this country down. That's what's really bringing it's us and the priorities and values that we work with. We're not staying with those values. We're making go to the mall. And what are we wearing more important than that? Come on. So we have a lot of transforming to do to get back to those values. And as we get back to those old values, we then are moving into the consciousness of the Age of Aquarius. Again, not doom and gloom, but not everything is wonderful and nothing needs to be changed. It's that we need to transform our world, and we need to transform each one of us, our consciousness from those programmed ways of thinking. They take us way back to our being a kid. The books we're reading are all programmed to see reality in our country in a certain way. We need to go deeper. We need to transform all of those ideas and paradigms that we live with inside ourselves. And we can do it. We are a strong people. And I'm not just talking United States, I'm talking human beings. A lot of people badmouth human beings all the time because we're not perfect. Do you think there's any other kind of entity that could make such beautiful artwork, make beautiful music, have something called love in their hearts and in their lives? We have great potential as humans, and we do need to evolve too at the same time, and we are. And part of our evolution is about letting go of a way of living, a way of being that's going to stop us from getting to the places that are healthy and good for our family in this new age. And this is an important year for it now. Here's the timing I see of things. Now we're going to get to Ellen pretty soon now. I'm looking forward to that. April. April looks like the beginning of things stirring um, with the economy and also with military. The United States right now is, and Western nations are, they're zeroing in on Iran now. I've seen it so many times. Remember with Iraq in 2003? I had a radio show back then, and I would say to people, this is coming. We got a war. We're gonna go into Iran like we've done Iraq, like we've done to so many other countries, and take over their country. And I remember people would get upset at me. You're creating it by putting it out there. Really? No, I wasn't creating it by putting it out there. I was looking at the planetary movements in order to see that, and it did happen. And this one is likely to happen again unless we get some real wake-up calls between now and the next couple of months. And believe me, they're zeroing in. Remember, there was a special deal that was made with Iran and the powers of the world. And then when Trump took over, he decided that he didn't like the deal. And then that put Iran in a place where, like, what are we supposed to do? They were told they have to abide by the rules of that agreement, but the others don't have to abide by it. So they got sanctioned more than before. And now that's what we're up against right now. We have not been a fair broker in the Middle East for a long time now. And we need to. That's part of the transformation of this world. Everyone created equal does not just mean within the United States. It means within the world. And right now in the United Nations, those that have military nuclear weapons and are rich are the ones on the Security Council that have most of the voice and power within it. That's got to change to all nations are equal in their vote, in their voice. So again, a lot of work to be done. A lot of inner work to be done. So this year, and then Ellen's coming up in a couple of minutes now. This year we have the eclipses are going to be in May and June, and the ones in May and June are going to be the second one in June 14th, I believe. That second one is going to be right at the United States Mars in its natal chart. United States Mars is at 21 degrees of Gemini, and that new moon is at 20 degrees, approximately 20 degrees of Gemini. So the United States Mars will be triggered. And then in April, just 2 months before that, Mars will actually have a return. Planets have returns, meaning wherever they were in the entities or the country or the person's birth chart when they were first born, it goes back to that same spot. So Mars is in April is going to 21 degrees of Gemini, which is where it was when the United States was born. Jupiter will be conjunct Aquarius, moon of the United States, in April also. United States, and that's the values. We talk about Aquarius all the time. The United States moon is in Aquarius. It's all of our inner values. Everyone's created equal, certain inalienable rights. We the people, of the people, by the people, for the people. That's Aquarius talk. And that's where our moon is. That's where our inner values are, right there. And Jupiter will be conjunct our moon in Aquarius. Happens every 12 years. So we're going to, one of a couple of things will happen. I'm not sure exactly how it'll turn out, but we're going to be reminded of what our values are. And hopefully it's not this kind of patriotism in some war against some of it. That's what I suspect. That it's going to be this like a pushed out patriotism. And I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. What it is just us coming back to those Aquarian values and feeling them and feeling how important they are for us. But see, you can see April's kind of got a lot of intensity coming in April. And then May, June are the eclipses. And I told you about that second one. First one is in Sagittarius. Then August looks like a really intense time. there'll be a lot going on at that time. I don't want to go into it all now because I don't have the time for it. But we'll get into that. Just take it from me that I think August is also going to be a challenging month, but a month with much growth. Remember, every time there's a challenging aspect, sometimes people go, "Oh my God, no." It's an opportunity to cleanse, to clean out whatever's not working anymore, and to let in and receive that which is part of our new world, our new consciousness. That's what transformation is. So when transformational planets start moving in our country or in the world, inside of us, it's time to release the old and start moving forward into the new. And the more you can let go, the less resistance you have, the more graceful the process is. So, yeah, there's a lot. And then there'll be another eclipse season in November, December. And that's the one I told you that's got the connections with Roswell. So we'll see exactly what that means. Our paradigm is shifting. We need to be in touch with that. We really need to let go of that which we've been programmed to believe. That which we've been programmed to believe. There's no other way to move forward than that. And I don't feel like talking anymore. I'd rather hear Ellen speak. So I'm going to introduce Ellen Solar to you. Hi, Ellen. Welcome. Perspectives.
Hey, Leo. Lots of insightful things you said, and lots I would like to talk to you about.
Okay.
First, I'd like to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh, did I tell you that? I guess obviously
Yes,
I did. Well, thank you very much. This year I am years old.
Still a youngster.
How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I can't
Good.
say I was like that yesterday when you were talking about weirdness. I felt very off kilter, as though I would fall over. Although there was a huge earthquake in New Zealand.
That's right. Over 7 points. 8
Very,
it was?
I'm very affected by earthquakes, so I think maybe that's what it was.
Oh boy. I knew it was
Yeah.
like a big one. I didn't know it was 8 point.
Yeah, but it wasn't, didn't hurt anybody. There was no damage of cities that I know of. Usually those are the ones that really affect me. But this one, I think that's what was doing. I know there's also some geometric storms happening, some real strong ones. And those do affect me. And they affect a lot of people.
Tell me more about that, the geometric storms.
Well, they come in, they're enough to knock out our whole system of electrical and internet, all of that. And back in, I think, the early 1800s, or maybe it was before that. 1800s, late 1800s. I think it knocked out our communication system. Of course, those weren't as sophisticated as we have now.
Mm-hmm.
So if it happened now, that's strength, we'd be in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know people were having a lot of troubles with their computers this week, and that's what you get is affected.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I brought mine completely crashed for a little while, for about an hour. I was able to get it revived, but that was pretty bad. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You live in Arizona now, right? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Midwest. I was born in Chicago.
Yeah, me too.
Lived in Illinois, Rockford, and then moved to Milwaukee. I was in Milwaukee and then University of Madison,
Yes.
in Wisconsin and Madison. And then I ended up in Philadelphia. And then Boston, and then out here. So I've been around.
Philadelphia, Boston, they're the home of our revolution, those two cities.
Yes. Yeah. And
Tell me when you...
I was going to say there's a lot of countries right now where the people are revolting. So,
you're right. Myanmar, for one.
Yeah. So what you were saying, I thought really hit home. this is a time of people needing justice and equality and
Exactly.
doing away with the authorities.
Exactly. Tell me when you first started getting your first feelings of UFOs or extraterrestrials. Tell me what your first experience. Tell our viewers.
I think I was trying to think back too after talking with you when that was the first, and I think Boston probably. At that time was the awakening of our spiritual selves, and that was 1970 and 69, 70, and I was a psychic at that time, a practicing psychic, and one of the few known to the public. In fact, a lot of people didn't even know the word psychic, which I didn't either until in the Midwest. But
Right. Yes.
gradually, I found out that I was one.
How old were you when you started getting that feeling that you were?
Well, I didn't know that word, but what happened is in high school, I was always telling people about themselves and about their lives and all of that kind of thing. And they called me Mother Ellen. And then when I got to college, my professors would call me aside and said, "How do you know this stuff?" And I'd say, "What?" And I'd be spouting off. Usually, I've always been very shy, believe it or not. And back then, I was really shy. I didn't speak up a whole lot in class, but every once in a while, I'd stand up and start spouting off. And now I know it was just channeling. But my professors would call me aside and comment on it. And I had another, oh, my throat, excuse me. It's another.
It's okay.
My child psychology teacher at the University of Wisconsin, we had a exercise where we were supposed to watch children through a one-way mirror, and you were assigned a child, and then you watched that child play, and then you had to make a recommendation of play for that child.
Oh.
Well, I wrote a whole paper about his family and everything else. And my professor called me aside and said, "Do you know these people?" I said, "Well, no." And she said, "Well, I have to tell you, they're my best friends."
Wow.
And you're totally accurate.
Oh,
Said,
that must have really, yeah, that must have really got you to know that you had that ability.
I didn't get it. And then I had people from around the university coming to me and knocking on the door and saying, "We hear you can tell people about themselves." And I said, "Really?" I was just not aware at all. It wasn't really until I got to Philadelphia that I started hearing audio voices. And then I thought, what's going on? I still didn't get it totally until I was married. And my husband said, "You missed the obvious." And I said, "I do?" And he said, "Yeah. We had somebody over for dinner. And after dinner, my husband was saying," oh, no, I said, "What a nice guy this is," and start talking about him. And he just looked at me and he said, "Ellen, that guy's an asshole."
Wow. Really?
Yes. I realized that I was tuning into the inner part of people.
Yes. Yes.
And so anyway, that's kind of how I started. But when I was in Boston, people started asking me to tune into some weird phenomena that were happening to them, such as a blue light down in their basement that they have no idea what the source was. And I would tune in, and sometimes I got that it was an ET. Other times, sometimes it was a ghost. Sometimes it was more obvious, but it gave me the idea that that these ETs really wanted to have people, they wanted to communicate. And so that's what they were doing, is putting out weird phenomena that people would notice. And so that gave me the idea to, through meditation, to become a contact for these ETs. So that's sort of how I started. And then I ran into Betty Hill. Do you remember Betty Hill?
Sure, from England.
And Barney
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
who were famous for saying that they had been abducted.
Oh, that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
That
Yes.
was back in the
Betty and Barney. Betty and Barney, no?
Betty and Barney, yes. What did I say? Barney? No.
I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know. No, but it's Betty and Barney.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Betty and Barney Hill.
How did you get to saying I'd like to make contact with you? That was in your meditation? You would talk to what's on the other side and say, I'd like to get to know you. What
Yeah,
was
I just put it out there in the universe that, I'm offering myself as a contact for any of you that would like to contact us here on Earth. And, so I didn't, I didn't think about it after that. I just made that comment and offering. And then it was soon after that that I actually got contacted by an ET physically.
What was that like?
Well, it was weird. I was at a meeting in Westport, Connecticut with a friend, and actually another psychic friend, and we'd have these, what we call the universal planning meetings. We'd get together and tune into consciousness on all different levels. And so, and getting down from way out and down to the personal. And so we would do that for 3 days. And at the end of those 3 days, she had taken me to the train station in Westport. And we were early. So we were in the cafe having coffee. And then I got nervous. I said, the train ought to be coming soon. Does anybody know what time it is? And 3 people turned around and they each told me a different time. So while we were discussing it and trying to figure out what the real time was, the train pulled in and then it pulled out and I missed it. And I thought to myself, there must be some reason why I missed it, because those don't usually happen to me.
Yes.
And so I went up to the platform and waited, and the train came, and my connection would be in New Haven. So when I got into New Haven, I thought I better get up to the platform right away. I don't want to miss this connection to Boston. And so I was standing up there, nobody else around, no way for anybody to get up to the platform except if I could see. So, because I was facing the station and the stairs came up to the platform. So I was just waiting, and all of a sudden there was a voice from behind me. And this funny looking guy, he was about my size, he was about 5'3" or 4", and he was wearing a little corduroy suit with a little corduroy hat. And he says, well now, which way is the train going to be coming from? And I just looked at him and I said, where did you come from?
Did you say that yet?
I said that to him. I said, there's no way for you to have gotten past me this way. And he didn't even address that. He said, well, I missed my train, my last train, and I don't want to miss this one. And so then the train pulled in, and what he did is he grabbed my suitcase and he said, you will sit with me, won't you, Ellen? Now, I had never mentioned my name.
Oh.
So he grabbed my suitcase and I thought, I don't have a choice. And it was kind of amusing to me. And so I just followed him into the train and we sat together.
Were you scared at all? Were you scared at all?
No, I don't scare easily. No.
Obviously.
I found it quite amusing, actually. And I was curious, of course. But he introduced himself as Patrick O'Shea. And yes, he did seem like a leprechaun, but I don't think he was. Because when I looked at him, I could see auras, and he only had 3 levels to his aura, where we humans have at least 7, the 7 that we most reference. And so I asked him, I said, where are you from, Patrick? And he says, oh, I just came from seeing my brother, and we're starting a business with this stuff called aloe vera. Have you ever heard of that? And back then, I hadn't really. And, but I wouldn't let him get by with it. I kept saying, where are you from? Where are you from? And he just kept changing the subject. And then I just settled down and just enjoyed being with him. And he started telling me about my life, things that were important that I should know. And he had a great sense of humor. So the two of us had fun, but it was a little while, and we kept talking, and then we pulled into Mystic, Connecticut.
Mystic. Nice.
Yes, Mystic, Connecticut.
Nice.
And we had gotten into a metaphysical talk. All of a sudden, all the lights in the train went out. And soon after that, they announced that there would be a delay. And I looked at Patrick and I said, you caused this, Patrick. He said, you caused it. Anyway, we continued to talk. And then when we were done with our metaphysical talk, all of a sudden the lights went back on and the train started forward. So then he said, Ellen, will you have dinner with me? And I said, do I have a choice? Because he seemed to be dominating my actions. And so we went into the dining car and had dinner together.
Did you like him? I mean, energetically.
I thought it was wonderful. Yeah.
What was his energy like? What was his energy like?
It was very light and joyful. Mm-hmm. And he just wouldn't take any negativity. I mean, I'm not a person, but if I said anything that was negative, he would turn it into a positive.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And he gave me a good recipe for rum punch.
Is that what they have up on Sirius? Rum punch?
I don't know where he was from. Yeah. And then when I came into Boston, we got up and he was right behind me the whole way. And I wanted to introduce him to my husband. I turned around and he was gone. He had disappeared.
Wow.
And
never to be seen again?
Huh?
Never to be seen again by you?
No, I didn't. Not that I was conscious of.
Yeah. But he never said where he was from. You never got that from him.
Well, what happened then is that weekend I was up in New Hampshire doing readings, and I would have once a month I'd go up there, and my hostess was a good friend of mine who also was psychic, and I did the readings, and then at the end of the day, she came, and we would always tune into each other. And so I asked her, I said, would you tune into this person I just met? His name is Patrick O'Shea. And that's all I said. And after a moment, she said, Ellen, he's not from this planet. I said, I didn't think so. So that was about it. But yeah.
With an Irish name.
I know, isn't that funny? And he looked like a little leprechaun.
He did? Yeah, you said that. Yeah. So that was your initiation into that world.
So, and then, after meeting Betty Hill, and we just talked. We met at some event, and we talked, and then I just.
Do you want to tell the people?
Pardon me?
Would you tell the people about that encounter with Betty and Barney? So some people don't know that.
Well, I didn't know that Barney had died. And Betty and Barney, for those that are probably a little younger than me, I wouldn't maybe remember, but it was a big sensation back in the 60s. And that Betty and Barney were going somewhere, and they got beamed up. Well, beamed. They had beamed and abducted to another planet, apparently. And I don't remember any of the discussion with Betty, so this isn't coming from her. I just what I remember about them,
Right.
So, but I don't remember too much about what she and I talked about, except she answered some of my questions. But that was.
But they were people who were said to have been abducted.
Yes, and they said what happened to them apparently is they found themselves with these strange looking people, and Barney kept saying they aren't human. They're very different than humans, and they got put on examination tables and peered into every bit of them, and I don't remember all of it, but eventually they were brought back to the Earth plane, and nobody wanted to believe them, of course. But
I think this is really the first information I got. I mentioned earlier today was this man John Mack that I interviewed on my radio show,
right.
And that's exactly what he was saying. He went out to check and see these people that said they were abducted and see if that's real or not.
Right.
And he came back saying, "Yeah, it's real."
Right.
Sometimes he said, "I think that it's just another dimension they've been taken into," and sometimes I believe it's actually in the flesh. But they're always abducted on some level of being.
Right.
I've got to let you go for today, but I would you come back next week? We have a lot to talk about yet.
Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about, and not just about ETs. I have to think. What's the date?
Today is the 6th of March.
So that would be what?
20th of March. Spring equinox.
Yes, as far as I know, I'd be glad to.
Okay, then I'm gonna. If you're not going to, just let me know. Like a week ahead of time, so I, fill it with another interesting guest like you.
Oh, okay. Boy, our time went fast, Leo.
Didn't it? Though? I know. It really did.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. It was nice, very nice being with you today, and I look forward to us talking again in a couple of weeks.
I hope so, and I hope you have a great birthday. Did somebody make you a cake? I hope.
Yes, my wife Deborah, I believe, has done
And
something.
what kind of cake?
Coconut cream.
Oh, sounds
Definitely
good.
my favorite.
Save me a piece, okay?
Okay. Take care of yourself.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
So you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking of doing some readings on the air, some mini readings. Like I would do them, not for a couple of shows yet, but I'll do some mini readings, and then I'll ask guests like Ellen if they wouldn't mind doing some mini readings for people too. But we'll see how that goes. But that's what I would like to do. So our next meeting will be 2 weeks from now on the 20th. Is that right? Today's the 6th, 13, 20. Yes, on the 20th. Is there anything I need to alert you to? On the 20th itself, that's the spring equinox. So we'll be meeting actually on the equinox, which I like. And I guess that's about it today. It was nice being on the air with you all listening. And I look forward to the next time we talk. And just remember, the Age of Aquarius is getting stronger and stronger. When you see things that are difficult in your life or in the life out in the world, remember it's all part of this process of transforming from an old age to a new age. It's not doom and gloom, and it's not nothing. It's an important passage for our human family. And the whole idea of aliens and ETs are going to be a larger and larger part of what this transformation is about. And I believe that as the difficulties get greater, their appearances to us will become greater and more frequent also. So again, if you want to get a hold of me, just write to Soulus, SOULUS, at AOL.com. If you have any questions about things on the show or any services of mine you want, just write to that email address. And I thank you all for being here with me today, and take good care till next time. Bye-bye.